You guys will be releasing any more details concerning the case. The last thing I saw on your social media was on July 8th, the same day. So any extra details, because we did just get the independent autopsy results today. Anything that you would give us?
None at this time.
Okay, so y'all are no longer answering questions about the case?
Yeah. I know you're trying to get some edited footage, but
no, I'm just asking. I'm just confirming.
That's all we're saying. We're actively investigating.
Thank you. My name is Chantel. We're from New Orleans, WDSU News.
Hey, I'm Doug. Doug.
Nice to meet y'all.
Okay. Yeah.
It's still actively being investigated.
Again, this was from the press conference this morning. When mom said that y'all were saying there was no foul play in the beginning, but now this, has anything changed since then at all, or?
Like I said, we're actively investigating the case. That's still an active, ongoing.
The state medical examiner did not release their report right at this time.
If I were you, I'd check with the district attorney's office too. As far as I know, and you don't have to publish that. That's going through the district attorney's office.
Ben Crump, happy to have you, my man.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be with you.
Ah, man, it's a pleasure having you. I mean, it's so much I want to ask you. It's so much I want to get into. I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take up that much of your time. But that's unfamiliar with that case. Can you break that down?
Certainly. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old black teenager who on 4th of July was celebrating with his friends, and he went out on Horn Island. He went with his 3 other friends, at least what we have in the photograph, and they were young white teenagers. He was the only black teenager, and somehow they all came back home safely on the 4th of July, but Nolan Wells did not come home. His mother, their families announced that he was missing. They were, out of their mind with concern. And then his body was found washed up on shore 2 days later, face down, dead.
And great to have you on the show. I want to play some sound from Benjamin Crump. He would see what he said. I think you'll find this is kind of a biased narrative, but I'll let you decide that. Watch.
This pathologist cannot rule out if any intervening non-accidental factors contributed to or caused the death of Nolan Wells. Understand, he's saying based on the examination of the body, he cannot rule out foul play. That is significant.
Brandon, he says you can't rule out foul play. What he left out is there is zero evidence of foul play.
First of all, Benjamin Crump needs to learn how to read. And I think that he was very disrespectful to the family by even doing this presentation unprepared.
A boat leaves an island without him. A body turns up 3 days later. A sheriff calls it an accident before the science even weighs in. Then the science comes back and doesn't agree. Undetermined, not accident, not homicide. Then a second pathologist flags something on the skull nobody expected. Then key tissue that could have answered the biggest question is gone, decomposed past the point of testing. Then federal agents start arresting people, not over the death, but over threats connected to it.
Meanwhile, 3 people are now facing charges for allegedly making threats against others involved in the Nolan Wells case, the Mississippi teen who was found dead after that 4th of July trip with friends. According to federal court records, Edward Porter is accused of threatening to kill or hurt 2 witnesses in the investigation. And a man from California is accused of sending threatening messages on Facebook to a Jackson County court judge. A woman from Ohio is also accused of making bomb threats to a George County clerk's office and the Jackson County Sheriff's Office.
3 separate arrests, 3 separate states, all in weeks, while the actual death investigation sits untouched. Every new fact in this case answers one question and opens 2 more. This is Nolan Wells, and right now the story is still writing itself in real time. Nolan was 18, a student at Southwest Mississippi Community College. The kind of trip that ends this story doesn't sound remarkable at first. A group of friends on boats headed out to Horn Island off the Mississippi coast, the kind of day hundreds of other people were having at the exact same time on the exact same water. Somewhere in that crowd, on a stretch of coastline packed with boats and swimmers, Nolan went into the water. He didn't come back out of it. 3 days later, searchers found his body. Here's where the story should have gotten simple. It didn't. Within an hour of the body being recovered, before an autopsy, before toxicology, before anyone had reconstructed what actually happened on that island, the death was labeled an accidental drowning. Not a working theory, a conclusion. Delivered before the evidence that should inform a conclusion even existed. His phone was left behind. So were his car keys. Small details, but the kind that don't sit quietly next to accident, without at least raising a question. A second autopsy, independent of the first, came back weeks later. It didn't confirm the drowning. It didn't call it a homicide either. The finding was undetermined, a word that, in this context, means the evidence couldn't rule enough out to call it anything with confidence. Buried inside that finding, a discoloration on the back of Nolan's skull, flagged by a credentialed pathologist as significant enough to document. And missing throat tissue. Decomposed past the point where it could be tested for strangulation one way or the other. Not proof of anything, just a door that can no longer be closed. While the death investigation sat there, no charges, no clear next step, a different part of this case started moving fast. Federal authorities charged Joseph Alfredo Vasquez Dumar with threatening a judge and her children. They charged Michelle Francine Edwards after more than 20 bomb threats aimed at Mississippi officials, one of which triggered an actual lockdown. They charged Edward James Porter with threatening a witness's family and, separately, threatening to hurt someone else entirely. 3 people, 3 states, all moving through federal court in a matter of weeks. The same case, 2 different clocks. One runs on the pressure this story has generated online, the other hasn't started running at all. And in the middle of both of those timelines sits Nolan's mother, Christine, a nurse practitioner who didn't accept accident as a final answer and said so publicly over and over. Not long after, an anonymous complaint landed her under investigation by her own nursing board. Negative reviews appeared on her professional page, seemingly out of nowhere, right as she started asking the loudest questions. Nobody has explained that timing. Nobody's had to, yet. What's actually known right now is this. An 18-year-old is dead. The first explanation didn't hold. The second one raised more questions than it answered. And the parts of this case moving fastest aren't the parts that involve figuring out what happened to him. If the official investigation wasn't going to hand out details, the public built its own file. The United Cajun Navy, the volunteer search group that helped find Nolan's body in the first place, put out a simple request. If you were on Horn Island that day and you have photos or video, send them in. People did. What came back wasn't a folder of random screenshots. It was an actual formatted report, numbered pages, cross-referenced against satellite maps of the island, an attempt to reconstruct which boats were where and when. Their own vice president was careful about what. That report was and wasn't. Not an investigation, not law enforcement work. A timeline built by a nonprofit out of whatever the public happened to send them. Inside it, one image stood out from the rest. A young man in blue swim trunks on the beach, partly blocked by other people in frame. Whoever submitted it says it was taken around 4:50 that afternoon, after GPS data already puts the boat Nolan came out on as having already left the island. Nobody could verify it was him. Not the face, not the clothing, nothing conclusive. The Cajun Navy flagged it anyway, specifically so it could be checked, not because they believed it settled anything. If that photo is Nolan, it means he was still on that island a full 20 minutes after his own boat was gone. If it isn't, it's one more young man in blue trunks on a beach that had hundreds of them that day. Right now, nobody can tell you which. A trial attorney who reviewed the full report wasn't impressed, called it a collection of unverifiable timestamps and secondhand posts, images nobody could confirm hadn't been altered. A journalist covering the case pushed back the other way, said the report was honest about its own limits, which is more transparency than the public had gotten through any official channel. Both of those things can be true at once. A crowdsourced timeline isn't courtroom evidence. It also isn't nothing. Then there's Katie. Early on, the story from Nolan's friends was consistent. Nobody knew who she was, just some girl, never seen her before. That story hasn't held up. Reporting has since surfaced texts showing at least one person in that friend group had been in direct contact with her, meaning someone in that circle knew exactly who she was, while the group's public account said otherwise. That gap hasn't been explained. Katie's sister has since laid out her side. Katie and Nolan talked. She assumed he was heading back to rejoin the boat he'd come out on. His friends were reportedly calling him back, telling him they wouldn't leave without him. He told her he was heading their way. She assumed that meant he made it. She left on a different boat. What's become clear since is that Nolan wasn't even on the same boat out to the island as the friend who's done most of the public talking about that day. This wasn't one group on one boat with one story. It was 3 or 4 boats, full of different people, and there's still no clean answer about which specific boat Nolan was actually trying to get back to. One thread did resolve cleanly, though. The confusion around the tow call, the mechanical trouble, the STO request, traces back to something simple. A good Samaritan stepped in and towed the boat himself before the original tow service got there, and it was reportedly the boat owner's grandfather who called to cancel that request, unaware help had already arrived. Not a cover-up, just one call crossing another. And then there's the claim that's been repeated for weeks like settled fact that Nolan's friends took polygraphs and passed. A former FBI polygraph examiner, 22 years with the Bureau, thousands of exams administered, was asked directly about it. His read, "What's being described sounds like a voice stress analyzer, not a polygraph. A different piece of technology resting on far weaker science. A real polygraph tracks things you can't consciously fake. Heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, skin response, built around questions engineered with precision. A voice stress analyzer listens for tremors in your voice under pressure. That's it. None of this means anyone failed a test. It means the test being talked about isn't the test people think it was. If this case ever reaches a courtroom, the question of whether anyone takes an actual polygraph is still completely open. So here's where the case actually sits. A death investigation is bound by procedure that doesn't move at internet speed. Every unnatural or suspicious death in Jackson County goes to a grand jury before charges become possible, and that requires the sealed autopsy and toxicology results to reach it first. Then a grand jury has to convene on its own schedule. There are unconfirmed reports that one may already be reviewing this case, not verified, worth watching. Meanwhile, the FBI's fast movement on the threat cases isn't a contradiction. It's a different case entirely. The death investigation belongs to Jackson County, start to finish. The FBI was never assigned to it. And even with everything people are calling evidence, a grand jury isn't asking whether something looks suspicious. It's asking whether there's enough to convict beyond reasonable doubt against a specific person. Right now, this case has no surveillance footage of the shoreline, no single clean eyewitness to the moment Nolan went into the water, and a body decomposed enough that the second autopsy came back undetermined instead of conclusive, which is exactly why it hasn't gone away. An 18-year-old who left his phone and keys behind if he was genuinely choosing to stay. A ruling issued before the facts were in, accounts that keep shifting under pressure, a skull injury nobody's explained, missing tissue that could have answered the one question everyone wants answered. None of it is proof on its own. Stacked together, it's the reason this story is still being told. Add it up, and here's what this case actually is right now. 2 people in federal custody over threats, then a third, Edward James Porter, charged after allegedly threatening the family of the man who towed the boat that day, including someone described as an actual witness in the death investigation itself. 3 people, 3 states, all facing federal charges in a matter of weeks. 0 people charged over Nolan's death. That's not a contradiction in how the system works. It's 2 completely different processes, moving at 2 completely different speeds inside the exact same case. Threatening a judge's family, threatening a witness, those are straightforward federal crimes with direct evidence, a phone number, a recording, a name attached to a call. They don't require a grand jury weighing circumstantial pieces against a reasonable doubt standard. Nolan's death does, so one moves in weeks. The other hasn't moved publicly at all. Through all of it, Christine Wells hasn't stopped. She's said plainly that she's not glued to her phone, that she has other kids to raise, that she steps away when she needs to. But she keeps coming back to it, because the alternative is letting the first hour's explanation be the last word on her son's life. An anonymous complaint to her nursing board and a wave of 1-star reviews arrived right as her voice got louder. Nobody in an official capacity has explained that timing. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it isn't. That's exactly the kind of detail that keeps a case like this from fading. Here's what's actually true, stripped of speculation. An 18-year-old went into the water on a crowded afternoon and never came back out. The first official explanation was delivered before the evidence that should have shaped it even existed. The second look complicated that explanation instead of confirming it. A skull injury nobody's accounted for, tissue too far gone to test for the one thing everyone wants, ruled in or out. A crowdsourced timeline raised a photo that might place him somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, and might not. A friend group's story about a woman named Katie didn't hold up the way it was first told. A claim about polygraphs turned out to describe a different, weaker test entirely. None of that is a verdict, none of it was ever going to be. What it is enough unanswered pieces that accident was never going to be the end of this story, no matter how fast that word got used the first time. Whatever the grand jury eventually decides, whatever that photo turns out to be, whatever explanation finally accounts for that skull injury, the answer owed to this family hasn't arrived yet. Until it does, an 18-year-old's death stays exactly where it's been sitting since the day his body was found, unresolved, and not for lack of people asking why. Call to action fair. Use notice. This video is for educational and commentary purposes only. All footage and images used fall under fair use guidelines as protected under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act. If you enjoy true crime content, make sure to subscribe to Love to Death channel for more shocking cases, in-depth investigations, and updates on stories like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.